Welcome to Brazen Education with Educator Barnes, a podcast with a focus on speaking your truth, being transparent to help others, and having no shame about it. Because we can't move forward until the truth is known. Hey everyone, it's Educator Barnes here, and thanks for tuning in to this next episode of Brazen Education. This topic is called 10 Takeaways from the Teacher Self-Care Conference. So, I first probably need to tell you what the Teacher Self-Care Conference is. This is the annual conference. It's been held in Atlanta, Georgia for the last 3 years, and it's led by the wonderful Francesca Fran Warren. She is the CEO and founder of the Educators Room. Most of you know that this podcast is part of the Educators Room. I write for the Educators Room, and I'm one of their editors now. And I didn't know about this conference until I became a writer for TER. And Fran, she's like, I want you to come present at the conference. And so this is the second annual conference. And I said, well, I can't go and present. First of all, I had never been to Atlanta, Georgia. So that was like kind of a daunting thing. And not that I'm afraid to travel. Atlanta just wasn't one of those cities that was on the top of my list of places to go. I've been now twice, and it is a nice city. There's a lot going on in Atlanta. So that was one area, like, okay, if I'm going, how long I'm going to be there, being away from my family. And I have no problem taking time away from my family. But the first time we went, back in 2018, my husband and my sons did go with me, and we made a vacation out of it, which was great because my husband's sister had recently moved down to Alpharetta, which is outside of Atlanta. And so it was an opportunity for us to catch up with her and her children and her husband. My other issue was, even though I was presenting to teachers, I was a coach at the time, I was just really presenting to teachers in Indianapolis. And you're talking about me coming to a conference in Atlanta with teachers from across the United States and Canada. And, it's one thing at home to be cool and people are like, yeah, Shantae, you did a good job with the presentation. Love to have you back. Giving me compliments and praising my work. It's another situation to go to another city and be in front of educators that you do not know from different states, even from a different country, and to test your weight to see how it goes. And so, honestly, I had a bit of a fear there. I don't want to go somewhere else and be like, man, she sucks. But, I'm also a big risk taker. People know this about me. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to go do it. I'm going to be me. And if they don't like how I am, that's cool. We can part ways, chuck the deuce, I'm out. So I went last year, and it was an awesome experience. Honestly, I can't remember the exact title of my presentation. I talk about this a lot. I suck at writing titles. A lot of times my titles are not written by myself. They are modified because I just cannot write a good title to save my life. Occasionally, I come up with a decent title. Occasionally. So Fran changed my title to a more catchy, appealing one. But the first conference in 2018 in Atlanta, the annual one, I talked about how I finally lost 40 pounds after having my boys. What some people don't know is, I had a twin pregnancy, so I'm bed rest for 4 months, 2 at home, 2 in the hospital, and I only put on like 41, 42, 43 pounds, right? And then I decided to nurse my boys. Well, that takes a hell of a lot of calories when you're nursing 2 babies at the same time, because that's what I was doing. Did that for 8 months. Lost all the weight and put it all back on and kept it on for like 4 years. Around year 4, I get these, my husband's like, we got to keep our insurance down. I need you to go get this biometric screening, like whatever. So I go get it. And a lady was telling me that I was on the way to diabetes, my cholesterol is high. And so I talked to the teachers last year about how I had to take my life back and get control over myself. Like, I wasn't healthy. I was at school way too long. So I talked about that, and people really liked what I talked about. So I was asked to come to a mini conference. Fran realizes, like, people like me maybe don't want to go so far away and go to Atlanta, or they just can't. It's too expensive, especially on a teacher's salary. And a lot of teachers are paying back student loans. I'm blessed to not have any student loans that I had to pay back. I had one student loan, and my father, for my wedding gift, said he was going to pay it off. And he did within, I think before I finished my first year of marriage, my dad had paid off. And I only had a $7,000 loan, so it wasn't even a huge loan because my tuition and all my other fees were paid for. I just, at the end, because I ended up being on that 5-year plan after switching my major 3 times, I had to take out a loan because there just wasn't any more money there. And so he paid it off before we celebrated our first wedding anniversary, or shortly after there. So she started doing mini conferences. So she had one in Chicago and another one in Miami, Florida around spring break time. And then there was one in Texas. I was like, okay, Texas is a bit far. And my husband was kind of a little salty about that one because he really wants to go to Texas. Hell, my husband would move to Texas if he could. He would move to D.C., he would move to probably New York, and he would move to Atlanta. Indy is cool, but he would prefer to live in a large city. I honestly could live in a city smaller than Indianapolis. So hence, that's why we're in Indianapolis, because it's a happy medium, that good old marriage compromise thing. So I was like, no, boo, we're not going. But we did go to Chicago, since Chicago's like 3 hours from Indy. And at that one, I presented again, and I really narrowed down on actions teachers can take about mental health to get their life back. And that one was powerful. I met some awesome educators from Chicago public schools and different places, and I'm still connected to a lot of them right now. We talk on Instagram, talk back and forth on Twitter, private messages on those platforms, and that was a wonderful experience. But from that one, some people said they wish I could talk and address issues that were particular around mental health for teachers of color. So this year, 2019, we just had the conference this past Friday and Saturday. My topic was the stigma of mental health among teachers of color. And that was powerful. One of the rules I had with my presentation is like Vegas. What happens in the room stays in the room. So when I share today, I'm not going to share anything that was shared during my particular session, because I have a rule about that. When you're talking about mental health and you want people to be transparent so you can help them, the person has to feel safe. And a lot of us, what we need to feel safe is privacy. So the words I'm going to mention or examples I'm going to give are things that were very public at the Teacher Self-Care Conference and not in the private sessions. And I was in another session which asked for our norms. Good old Educator PLC, we like to have our norms. That what happens in the room stays in the room. And I just want to preference that right there, because I gave my word and I always keep my word. So let's get to it. Let's get to the 10 takeaways I had. And these are just takeaways I had overall, just from some of the experiences I had from this Teacher Self-Care Conference. Number one is that self-care, unfortunately, is now becoming a buzzword and is not necessarily being used correctly. Sometimes people think about self-care like this luxe, pampering, almost like, ooh, I got to take care of myself. That's not exactly what we mean. We mean, when we are talking about self-care, is not giving of yourself to the point that you are falling apart. And teachers, we are notorious for that, because to go in a teacher, you have to have a heart. You have to have a heart for children. You have to have a heart for kids. And to have that heart, you're a giver. You're a caretaker. You want to take care. I mean, I think about my sons. They were in the same class. I remember my son had a chronic cough. And I'm like, I got to get this medicine. We got him the cough medicine. And I'm texting the teacher on the little app. And she said, oh, I got it. I got some peppermints. I got some cough drops. As long as it's okay. And I was just thinking to myself, that's a true teacher. That's how we are. We trying to make sure that the students okay. We got to give them some cough drops. If they don't have lunch, make sure they eat a snack from our room. All they're coming in, their clothes are a little bit raggedy. Okay, let me make sure they have some clothes to wear. We give and we give and we give and we give and we give, and then we're not taking care of ourselves. And so one of the reframing or the refocusing at the conference was like, what is self-care? And don't get caught up in it becoming a catchword, because now it's kind of like, I take it like it's like being culturally responsive. Some of these things are becoming catchwords and not being used for the intent that they were created. Number 2, there are serious consequences to not taking care of yourself. And some of the examples I'm about to share were some that were shared pretty publicly. We had a panel called PSD in teachers. And you had teachers sharing about how they ended up in the ER because they were literally having breakdowns. That's how bad it got. Or they were so stressed out. The one teacher said that she just told a student to shut up. And she said, no, that's not, how I should address the student. But she said it was just this all this pressure. And what really got me was one of the teachers was a teacher of the year at her school. And the pressure and the weight and what it sounded like to me, I'm not trying to put words in the teacher's mouth, but I don't think she wanted to say it, but it sounded like she was being harassed by her administration. And teachers saying that they, are on anxiety meds, depression medication. Just hearing about schools where half the teachers are on some type of medication just to function. And one presentation I attended, the presenter talked about how there were some studies done to show that when teachers are stressed, that stress is being passed on to the students, and it can create kind of a stressful or environment, or not the environment that the welcoming environment that students deserve. And honestly, this job is hard enough without the extra stress and the extra baggage. And you have people who are so concerned about the job that they are ignoring their health to the fact that they are landing themselves in the hospital and they're not taking care of themselves. And at a previous conference, a girl, she ended up having to be taken away, a lady rather, had to be taken away in an ambulance because if I remember correctly, she had a heart attack at work. And I'm just like, good gracious. This job is literally about to kill some of us. And I knew a teacher that I worked with who retired, and he wasn't even that old. Like, I felt like he retired like right at retirement age or maybe a couple years before, but I think he was straight, so that's why he went out. Summer break, I get contacted. So we're just a few weeks into summer. He passed away. And that was the saddest thing to me. It's like, you did all this, you gave. You finally walk away and retire, and then you're just gone. And I don't want to be that teacher. So that's why this conference is important. One of the keynote speakers was Chris Emdin. I know he's really big on Twitter with Hip Hop Ed. I have not participated in any of those Twitter conversations because honestly, there are so many Twitter chats online, and some people will tell you, those who have been in Twitter chats with me, I'm notorious for falling asleep during Twitter chats because I typically get up super early in the morning to edit, either for the educator's room or for NEK12 or to write for my own pieces. So when we're having Twitter chats around 7:30 to 8, even though that doesn't sound very late, sometimes I've been up since 3 a.m. So I'm up here like, I don't made a comment, someone else tweeted back at me, and this is where people be making jokes on me. They're like, yeah, just wait, because tomorrow morning, sometime early, around 5 a.m., Shantae gonna get on there and respond back to your comment that you posted last night in the Twitter chat. So I'll say all that to say, that's part of the reason I just haven't been on, because I'm like, look, I've already embarrassed myself. I fall asleep and responding the next day. Let me not get into a ball. But dude was dope. He was cool. He was transparent, and he just kept it real. And one of the points he made was just be you. He said, and I tweeted this. He said, your authenticity is your vibranium. And for those of you like, what the heck is vibranium? Look, watch Black Panther, read some comic books. I don't have time to get all into the weeds, because that's the world burden sometimes. Like when you're making a Black culture reference, or you're just talking about something in Black culture, and then someone wants you to explain. Like sometimes, and my white friends will tell you, sometimes I'm like, look, this is what it is, And sometimes look, just look for yourself. And they and my white friends are cool. They understand that part of learning about other cultures is taking some ownership and responsibility in finding out. And I am becoming friends with a lot of indigenous people. And that's the same thing. Like, there are things they will tell me, and there are some things they're like, here's some resources, you can find out for yourself. And I respect that. So back to my actual topic I talked about. Mental health for teachers of color is a real thing, and I would have said that we have the worst. In my, sometimes when people say people of color, they hear black. We truthfully talked about people of color. We talked about 3 groups. We talked about our Latinos, we talked about black teachers, and we talked about Asian teachers. And we looked at a lot of the data out there. We talked about Asians and the model minority, how some of their relatives may not even believe in mental health, or there's the religious piece. And the religious piece actually covered all 3 groups. And something that was same between the Latinos and blacks was what happens in our family stays in the family. You're not going out there talking to the therapist. Religion was very heavy. African Americans. We talked a lot about how a lot of times some of our incidents, our mental health is triggered by existing while black. We've had so many traumatic experiences just being a black person in this country that lives itself on top of that. And then you're trying to go teach, and then you're dealing with other black children, because a lot of us who are black teachers, we want to teach in schools where students look like us. And so now we have our own trauma, we have our own baggage, and now we're dealing with students that are bringing their trauma and their baggage, and it's like a boom, it's a collide. And so it's a serious situation. And so I went over statistics in my conversation. People were very transparent about those situations, which we'll not get into, just about how tough it was. And I'm just glad that we came together and had a great, I told them, I'm like, look, yes, I'm up here in front of y'all delivering information, but I always tell people, when you're in a presentation with me, it's a conversation. That call and response piece is really powerful in like the black church, the black community. Like when you have a crowd of black people and their person is talking. Because I remember I brought a white friend to church one time, because, you know, the church is like, go out and make disciples. Bring your friends to church. I'm like, okay, most of my friends are white, so I'll bring my friend to church. Yeah, I was a kid, and you don't know that your church has all these rules and functions or ways of being until you bring somebody into your church, and then you're like, oh. So anyway, preachers preaching, and people are saying things back, and she was just like, you could just like talk out back to the guy. I was like, yeah, but that's our community. Even when it's not religious or related, you know, people are just calling back out to the speaker and be like, come on, say that. Yeah, that's the truth. Oh, can I ask a question? That's kind of how we are. And so I tell people when I'm making a presentation, like, look, first of all, I am not the holder of all knowledge. There is something within you that you can say in this conversation that's going to empower me, that can make my next presentation better. This is a conversation. Please don't have me up here talking at y'all this whole time. And then I'm getting really good at that wait time, because you need wait time with children, you need it with adults. I'm going to say, okay, let's ask a question. Okay, anybody have any responses? And then I'll wait. And you know, it doesn't matter if it's an adult or a child. People hate that awkward silence. Somebody's going to say something. And I'm okay with the silence. So that's cool with me. My next point was something I actually talked to my father about before I went. He talked about the whole crabs in the bucket mentality, because my father and I were talking about my career. I wrapped up year 13. I'll be starting year 14 next school year. And we talked about some of the incidents I faced throughout my career. And if you read my article, Teachers Quit Principals Not School, you know I dealt with some racism in that particular one. So you had that, but it was like people in my face like, ooh, you affirmative action hire. You're just here because you're black. Do you know that was easier to deal with than being harassed, pulled down, and undermined by people that looked like me? Some of my worst, most difficult experience I've had are with other black educators. I freely admit I'm a blurred, black nerd. I'm an odd person. And I'm okay with that. I'm very okay with that. On my website, educatorbarnes.com, I wrote a piece that says I am black enough. And it talks about how I feel like there's a black community, and then I'm like somewhere on the periphery. Like I'm just not like in it. There's just things about me that people find odd. The fact that I listen to classical music. I listen to a lot of music. I've listened to probably every genre, to be honest. I just love music, which my husband's like, what do our kids listen to? Because my husband, it's very like R&B, hip hop, rap. Maybe some pop, maybe a little rock. But some of the stuff I listen to, he's just like not feeling. I will say, if I'm listening to classical jazz and some of my classical music, he'll tolerate. So I'm bringing him along. But just there are things that I'm interested in. There's things that I like to do that people just find odd, and people tell me that's not black. And so when you're in a school setting, when you're fortunate enough to be in a school where there are other educators that are black, and there's these research studies, and I think there's a book that's called, While the Black Kids Sit Together at the Lunch Table. I was never a black kid that sat together with the black kids at the lunch table because honestly I was not welcome. At Purdue University, there's a place called The Tree. That's where all the black people congregate. I sat there one time and it was just like, I don't even know why I was over there. I was never invited to a black party when I was in college. The white parties I always got invited to. So I just never really meshed in because I just had interests that were different and that people just thought were just too white. And I don't feel like I'm too white. I don't feel like I'm not black enough. I feel like I am me. And I'm okay with that. But when you're you and people feel like you're not fitting in with the group or the norms that black people set, sometimes I try to undermine you. And I've had black colleagues that have lied on me. I will tell you that the one colleague that did that, so somebody lied on me, and it was early in my career. Someone that I looked up to be completely honest, lied on me. I was investigated, and I had no clue I was investigated until I was told. My principal wanted me to come to the office. I was told by my principal that, this was said about you. You were investigated, and we found out that this person totally fabricated this. And the very thing that the person lied on me about was the very thing this person was doing. That person actually ended up getting terminated. And so now I have a situation where I looked up to someone, looks like me, lies on me, finds myself getting terminated, and it wasn't just about this lie. There were some other things going on that I wasn't aware of. And so I've had several experiences like that. I was even at work one time, and there was a colleague that was in some trouble with the snow getting to work, and it was a black colleague. And I ended up coming up to the front office because this person had texted me, and I was like, what's going on? And someone cracked a joke. It's like, oh, Shantae's going to come and hang out with the black people now. And even though I laughed it off, that's the kind of crap I hear from people at work sometimes. And you know what? I'm at a point in my life at 35, like I really don't give a damn if you think I'm black enough or not. I'm me. And if you're going to be jealous of me, try to undermine me, you go do that. Go burn your energy on something like that. But as a teacher, as an educator, we shouldn't be acting like the kids. And if we're saying that we're creating these culturally responsive classrooms to accept everyone, the least you can do is accept those that are your colleagues. So if you're a black educator or educator of color and you're bothering other educators of color, stop that mess. Stop that mess right now. Grow up. Number 6. Administration needs to be more aware and cognizant of self-care and take care of their teachers. There was a point in time where we did different roll calls. All the elementary educators stand up. All the secondary educators stand up. And then they said all the admins stand up. There was like 2 people. And that was disappointing to me. I will say for next year, this conference is going to go from 2 days to 3 days. And the first day is going to be Administrators Summit. And if you are a teacher listening to this, go to Teacher Self-Care. Oh, man. I think it's .org or it's probably .com. Try both. You'll figure it out. And get that information to your principal because principals need to be there. Because here's the thing. If you're a principal, you was once a teacher. And there's something about crossing that threshold that changes some people that were wonderful teachers into to these horrible administrators. Now, on the flip side, we had a whole conversation about how some people get into administration. They had no business being there. I taught 2 years and they up here being administrators because they was kissing the right butt or, nepotism, or they was friends with the right people. I'm just keeping it real because y'all know that's the truth. And then those people are over you and you are under their authority, and how that could be harming you. But if you're an administrator that cares about your teachers, you care about your students, because you can't care about your students if you don't care about your teachers. You need to be putting things in place that shows your teachers that I care about you. You're not loading them down with unrealistic expectations. And if you do have to do something because of the district mandate, be real about that and be real about how you're going to support them. Because sometimes, shoot, I get it. I've been a coach. So I've been there at those meetings with theirs. Because sometimes as a coach, you go to these admin meetings with your administrator and you're like, district wants her to do what? And then you realize, there's not a recommendation. That's what she's going to do. So you're like, how are we about to bring this back to the building? So I've seen the other side. But there's a way to go about it, and there's a way to support teachers so it's successful. So I really hope that I'm glad that Fran is addressing this, because every conference people are talking about this. Like, we need administrators in this conversation. And administrators need self-care. They need to be there just for themselves. There was a former administrator I met at the conference last year. Her brand is Teach and Take Time for You. Oh, please, I hope I got that right. I went to her session. I found her phenomenal. So I hope she'll come back to some more conferences and share some of what she learned. 7, I learned that teachers need an outlet. I met a lady named Dana. And she's behind the Happy Teacher Revolution. And she is just so bubbly, so happy, so great. But she was really transparent about her experience, which I won't get into. You look her up and check her out. She has a lot of stuff on there. And she talked about how she has these different, I don't want to call it a club. And she said it's not like AA, but it's like where teachers can meet and just kind of vent. And it's kind of like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And she actually, in her session, she talked about what she did, her background. And then we actually did one of these sessions. And it was really cool, because I had no intention of saying anything during the session. And there was a lady that said something that I'm pretty sure I saw her in Chicago, or maybe it was Atlanta last year. And it just triggered me, because it was a very similar experience I went through, and I shared it. I was like, I was not even trying to talk during this session. So teachers need an outlet. They need a place to share, because honestly, I'll tell you one thing that I felt this school year. I don't feel emotionally safe at my current school. I don't feel there's anyone at my current school that I can talk to or confide in because of some situations that's happened this school year. And when you're in that situation where you literally can't talk to someone that's literally in your same situation, like that, there with you on the ground every day, you need a place where you can talk. And sometimes you just need a place for you to talk because you don't know who the snitches are. Because unfortunately, in some school buildings, you just got those people that are just kissing principal butt because they think they're going to get elevated up to another role. I don't know. I don't know why you're doing that. My principal will tell you. I'm not there for that. I'm very like, this is what it is, and this is what I will and will not do. I'm very much like that. And some people can't stomach a person that's like me. And one of the ladies that was on the panel, she talked about how her data is like off the charts. And she said, instead of that being congratulated or celebrated, she said people started calling her arrogant and calling her these names. And I've never been called arrogant, but I've been called closed off from people. Even though I have all these notes, and I don't have it with me. A colleague of mine wrote me a very powerful note about how helpful I was to her. She actually ended up leaving our school. And that resonated with me so much because there were some people that were saying that some of the changes that we're making to make our library more culturally responsive, because that was my job last year. I was an elementary librarian. They weren't supportive of because, oh, you're going to get rid of that book? Teacher, nobody has read this book for 20 years. No one. We don't need it. And don't you come in here trying to check it out so it'll have one checkout in the last 20 years. Do you hear yourself right now? Let's get this off the shelf and put books on the shelf that kids want to read. And so this teacher wrote to me and says, I see you. I see what you're doing. Keep doing it. And I was so oblivious to that she was handing me something so powerful because I'm rushing down the hallway. It's the teacher record day. So I'm just trying to turn in all my stuff, get my checklist so I can roll out, right? So she's like, hey, I got something for you. I'm like, okay. And I just grabbed it and kept walking. I didn't open it up until like days later. So we fully into summer break. And I was like, wow. Side note, even if you're facing adversity, there are some people that see what you're doing despite the noise and despite what people are saying. Number 8, we as educators have to learn this word, no. Now, I'm very, very comfortable and confident in the word no. No to the part of that somebody called me this school year. You know how they go, well, Mrs. Barnes, you just not a team player. Oh, I'm not. Oh, okay. Thanks for sharing your opinion with me. I am very much a team player, but you're not going to tell me how I'm going to play on the team. And that's where we find ourselves in. You feel like you have to burn the midnight oil. And I wrote something for the educators room. I think it was one of my earliest articles for them about teachers need to stop burning the midnight oil. People know me. I roll up when the time for school starts, and I roll out when school is over. Now, that doesn't mean I do that every single day. I have days where I'm like, maybe once a week, okay, I'm going to stay after and do this. But I have a schedule for that. Because after school, my boys are in clubs, they're in activities, and I want to see what they're doing. And there's activities I want to do with them. I have date nights built in because, honestly, we have like afternoon dates, my husband and I. Because we can keep our kids in aftercare until 6 p.m. And we have because my husband's, I can get off of work at 3:10, right? Which means there's a beer garden by our house at Newfields. If you're not from Indy, you have no clue what this is. But long story short, the Museum of Art changed its name to Newfield, and they have all these extra things with it now. And one of those is the beer garden. So sometimes we'll just meet. We can meet there by 3:30. Have a little afternoon date and do us. And so when you're saying I have to stay around for some arbitrary task that I'm not interested in to show you that I'm a team player instead of me taking care of myself and spending time with my husband. And then now you're going to say, oh, I'm not a team player. I'm not a team player because I'm taking care of myself. I'm not a team player because I'm not up here chugging coffee. I drink coffee. You know how some people are social alcoholic drinkers? I'm like a social coffee drinker. I don't really drink coffee. I don't really care for it, to be completely honest. So I'm that person that PD, like, okay, trying to figure out how to make a coffee cup. I typically drink decaf because I don't like all the caffeine that's in coffee. So I'm a teacher that goes to work. I'm me. I'm not hyped up on Coke. I'm not hyped up on coffee. I'm just there because I'm trying to make sure I'm getting sleep at night because I do get up early. So I go to bed early. So having an afternoon date is perfect for that. But I do help out when help is needed. I am there and I make plans. Like I look at my calendar, and that's the thing that was frowned upon until I came to my current school. And I've only been in my current school for one school year. I would look through the school calendar and decide what school events or school activities I would participate in and schedule that around the things I wanted to do, either with my husband, with my parents, maybe my sisters, maybe my kids, maybe my nieces. So I'm kind of having that balance between work and my personal life, right? But at this school, that wasn't acceptable. It was like, oh, we're having a math pentathlon. We need everybody to be here X amount of times. Oh, we're having this. We need you to be here. And most of you know, I started working on in a doctoral program. I did classes the first semester of the school year. Second semester, I didn't do any classes. I'm doing more classes again the next semester because you have some time. And so I have a plan. Anytime I put my mind to do something, I have a plan to finish it. And so that first semester, I literally didn't have the time. And that's where I got the comment, I'm not a team player. Because when people want to be jerks and say stuff like that and they don't know your situation. Heck, I only been in school for a few months. So how are you going to tell me about myself? You don't even know me and I don't know you. But since you up here trying to tell me about myself, let me pull my cell phone out of my pocket and show you my calendar. Pull out my calendar and just start flipping through the days. So you can see, because I put everything on my calendar. Date night with husband at the beer garden. kids, taking them to math enrichment club, because my husband has a job where sometimes he works 60 to 80 hours a week. So when it comes to our kids, it's me a lot of times picking them up and doing these things. So I just flip through here. So when am I supposed to do this? Because I don't have the time. And when I came in here for the interview, now all these extra things that are supposed to be optional, that you're now trying to tell me that they're not, but they're still optional. And now you're trying to come and criticize me about that. Don't. So you can come. So that's how people are. First they try to be nice about it and try to ask you, and you like no. And they come and they try to criticize you and try to guilt you into it. What you gonna know about Shantae Barnes? I don't care how you come at me, either with this fake enthusiasm or criticism, or try to tell other people I'm not a team player. No, the first time. No, the second time. And no any other times that you come at me with that. And as educators, we have to learn to say no. The school building will not fall apart if you are not there helping set up tables for this one event. Yes, we need people to do that. Yes, I agree. At some point in time, you need to participate in some of these things. But I also even already say that some years may not be your year to do any of that stuff. I have colleagues who are at the place where they are now taking care of parents. And I'm like, your parent is ill. You've been out of work. You are with your parent every day. Like, this year is not the year for you to be doing any extra activities. And that should be respected, because everybody has different life and phases and stages in our lives. And we don't respect that. We don't respect like legitimate change. It's not like this person doesn't care about the school, because that's the other thing. They say, oh, you don't care. They do care. But somebody's mama has cancer. They have a terminal illness. And you want them to shove that to the side to help set up tables? That's not even considerate. That's just, I just don't understand this profession. Why we just don't even see us as humans, like we don't have a life and we're not considerate. We really need to bring that back. Number 9 is this whole teacherpreneur. It's a thing and you should get into it. Last year I went to Tara Sills, and I can't remember what her session was called. And she was here this time with some popping blue hair. Go girl. And she talked about kind of branding yourself. And I'm sitting there in the session. I just went to the session. I'm going to be honest. You know, sometimes you go somewhere, you're like, I'm just going to check this out. I don't think it fit me, but I'm just going to see what she's going to say. That's exactly how I rolled up in there. And she was very like, you're not about to, it's like kind of like me. This is a interactive thing. You're not about to sit there and say nothing. So we all talked about ourselves, and she was like, you got all the components. You need to brand yourself. That's what she said to me. And then I went to teaching with Lanisha, who is from Indy. I went to her branding session, and from that I hired someone, Beth, who is awesome. She actually helped brand the school district I went to as a kid, and I'm on the alumni newsletter, and I saw her advertising, so I just reached out to her and said, hey, I'm a teacher. This is what I'm looking to do. And so she actually branded 3 things for me. She branded me Educator Barnes, so I have a nice little logo that I use with everything, which was helpful because one of the things I experienced in my career is theft of my work. When I was a coach, I was given a district binder of something to look through. And then within this binder, I saw a resource that I had created. I had created this years ago, so even before I came to this district, and I modified it and let somebody use it. And they were asked to put this binder together and pass it off of their own work. Now, you know how I am. I went right to that person and confirmed them with the information. Person, and it was a white educator. I'll be transparent about that. Face turned all red. And I said, this is not okay. I said, nowhere on here says that this was created, research created by Shantae. You got your name up here in the front of this section. So everything after this, it presumes that it was made by you. I said, this is theft. And you know I'm an English teacher, so I'm talking about plagiarism. I'm bringing it all out. So there's a part of me that's like, I felt that this research was important. So I allowed it to be used with some modifications, like my damn name on it. And I said to this person, I said, don't you come back to my office and ask me for anything else. Don't ask me for nothing. And then I said, I got some work to get done, so I'm going to go back and do that. And that's about all I can say, because you know how you just mad about something. And the one thing I try very hard to do is not to get pissed off at work and say things that I'm going to regret. So I said the things that were needed to be said, like, this is not okay. This resource is valuable, so I'll let you use it if you put my name on it. And don't ask me for nothing else. Period. And then I walked off. Probably said it a bit sternly, but I did not use any profanity. I did not wail my arms or anything, because sometimes being a black educator, you have a conversation with a white educator and they feel threatened. And I'm just like, but did you see how you came at me? You the one wailing your arms and stuff. Anybody should be feeling threatened is me. But see, I'm not going to let no colleagues make me feel threatened. That's just how I roll. So she also did that, back to my branding myself. So Educator Barnes, sharing resource, changing lives, one resource at a time. Shoot, I need to know my own tag, man. Look at me. I'm bad. My other resource. So before I started to become an education writer, I was actually writing about gardening and, urban gardening and growing your own food. And so she branded me, Gardener Shacole. Shacole is my middle name. It's a name I go by a lot sometimes, because my first name, when people read it, they mispronounce it. A lot of times people don't mispronounce Shacole. And so when I created the website, I named it that. And so Gardener Shacole is anybody can be a gardener. You just have to get ready, get set, and grow. See, I know that one because I say that. It's weird. So Educator Barnes, I put my logo on stuff and on presentations. But with Gardener Shacole, I vlog. So I say my tag all the time. So I got it down. So now I feel like, see, I'm having a reflection right here on this podcast. I need to start saying my tag when I present, so I get it ingrained in my head, so I'm up here stuttering and stumbling. And then the last one, something I recently created. I created a logo for my kids called Barnes Brothers Books. And not this week. I'm going to talk more about what that's about. I can't talk about that one right now, but there's more on that coming. But teachers have talents. We are professionals. We have skills, and we can monetize those skills by creating resources for the teachers, doing presentations. Some of my presentations I go to and I don't get paid. And some of them I do get compensated. And some I've been compensated well for, more than I would ever thought somebody would pay me. And when you have talent, when you have good data, when you know your stuff, people will pay you. So go get that money. And so there was a part like they call it teacherpreneurship, self-care through teacherpreneurship. Taking care of yourself, because we know at the end of the day teachers don't make enough. That's why we on Time Magazine. On Time Magazine, teachers on Time Magazine. Donating plasma, driving Uber, mowing lawns just to get by. So why do all that other stuff? Why don't we just use the skills that we already have to make some size change, get that hustle on? And number 10 is that teachers need a self-care community. And that's what I love about the Teacher Self-Care Conference. I have a community of teacher friends. I did write a piece for TER called, I'm bad at titles because I don't think I named this one. It's about finding your teacher tribe. Just Google Teacher Tribe, TER, Shantae Barnes. You should find it. But it talks about how, as teachers, we need a community of people, because I come home all day, every day, and vent to my husband about my job. But my husband doesn't do what I do. It's kind of like when he comes home and vent to me about his job. And he's a senior database administrator for the state of Indiana. Sometimes I don't understand. Like, I don't understand why, like, you're upset about this. I don't understand the gravity of how this is affecting you. So I'm supportive. There's something about being supportive and being a listening ear than being an understanding ear. We need listening ears, but we also need an understanding ear. We need somebody to be like, man, this PLC, and I don't have to explain what a PLC is. For my non-teacher listeners, PLC is a professional learning community. It's where we come together, look at data, do professional development, and try to figure out how we can get better for students. But you see all the time I had to sit there and say that to y'all, non-teachers that listen to my podcast. And first of all, my non-teacher audience is awesome. They are some of my hardest, biggest supporters. And teachers, we need supporters that aren't teachers, because honestly, a lot of people that make a decision about teachers are not teachers. So we kind of need that community of teachers and supporters. But we also need those people that are not teachers who are using the system, whether they have kids in the system that are supporting us. And so I have a strong base of people that read my blog on my personal website that are not teachers that like follow me, because with websites you get notifications, you see what people are reading. Sometimes they'll write me back, and so some of my biggest supporters are not teachers, but I still need that community of teachers that are around me that understand stuff that I don't have to take the time to explain. They get why I'm frustrated. They get why I'm like, man, this PLC is a waste of my time. Nothing valuable is happening, and you know it's not valuable when administration don't even show up. Yeah, so that's the thing. I actually have a whole article about professional development that will not be released until later because I'm fine-tuning it. Because I have articles that I will sit down, bam, I got it done 15, 30 minutes because I write so much that I actually can crank out an article that quickly. But some articles, I write it and it's just not right. So I'm working out that one. But one of the areas I am addressing in that article is the fact that we have meetings that principals will write you up for because, you know, somebody said that you wasn't there, but they don't even bother showing up to. And they supposed to show up to at some point in time. Granted, principals have a lot of responsibility, so I understand they're not there every single time. But you just come in August and you don't come the rest of the school year, that's a problem. And so find you a community. And if you're an educator listening, I know the next mini conference is in October sometime in Philly. And I've been to Philadelphia one time. Actually, I didn't even get to see the city. I was flown in for an event and flown right back out. I got to stop doing that. Going to these cities for education events and not exploring the city. But a lot of times I have other things that's happening in Indy, so I have to get right back. So there's a mini conference that'll be there. The next conference, number 4. Wow, coming up on 4. Will be in Atlanta. I will not actually be presenting in 2020 in Atlanta because I'm doing some other work. And my husband and I, we are very big on becoming debt free. And right now, the only debt we have is the mortgage on our house, which is down significantly. And my SUV, because if you don't know this, a couple school years ago, when I left work to start winter break, my paid off car got totaled. So I had to get another vehicle for Christmas. And that sounds great, get a new vehicle for Christmas. Except if you're like me and you had a paid off vehicle and you didn't want a car note. So my vehicle is actually over 50% paid off. And my goal, so this is a high level goal. My goal is by December 2019 to have it completely paid off. Because when I make goals for myself, I make high level goals, like very, very aggressive goals, and then I make realistic goals. So I have, you know, those different ranges. But honestly, it'll probably be paid off when next school year ends. So, because that's how I don't play when it comes to, I don't want debt. And so when that's off, the only thing we got to do is deal with our house. And our house has been paid off to the point of now we're like, well, maybe we can fix up some things around here, or maybe we can move. So we have options, but we're not in a rush to do any of that stuff. So check out the Teacher Self-Care website. Follow the Educator's Room. There are a lot of great articles. I know you're like, well, aren't you the editor? Aren't you supposed to say that? Look, yeah, I'm supposed to say it, but it's also true. Read the great articles by educators from across the United States. We hired a couple educators that are abroad, and I love their perspectives because something that was said at the conference, teachers are suffering across the globe. It's not just a United States thing. And yes, there are some places where we keep being told, I'm not going to mention those places, that it's just great there. But in general, you know, teachers are not being lifted up in the way they should be, and they need to take care of themselves more. So hopefully my top 10 tips from the Teacher Self-Care conference resonated with you, and hopefully you heard some takeaway, whether you're an educator or not, that you can apply to your life. And so thanks for listening to my podcast today. Until next week.